Hey folks, this is Tolly and welcome to another game dev stream. Today we're going to be taking a look at checkpoints is kind of the primary goal that I'm going to be working on. We've talked about this a few times in the past, but when it comes to kind of our game idea of doing like a kind of roguelike with runs but with a fixed map, I'm going to want to have some form of allowing the player to make progress, so that when you do a run, you don't have to replay the first few map levels over and over again. So we're going to have this idea that when you progress, you will eventually come across a goddess statue, and these goddess statues will be able to be interacted with to unlock it as a new starting point when you start a new run. So the next time you run through this, you might be able to choose the next spot, and that's where you'll begin, allowing you to make kind of forward progression through the game while having the same amount of time on the clock. And that's basically what we're going to try and do. So in that vein, there's a couple of things we're going to need. So if we go back to the Goddess Realm, I'm just going to debug send us back, and we skip past this. When we come in here and we try and leave, we basically auto get sent down. So we step on this tile here, which at some point I'd like to get some sort of like decal of like a teleporting rune or something. But when we step on it, we just auto fade away and then lightning zap in front of the statue. I think what I'd like to do is I'd like to have it, at least for now, make it so that it doesn't just auto transition you, but when you step on that tile, it opens a screen. Not unlike how we open a screen from interacting on the skill screen. So let's take a look in here. So the same way that when we walk up to this scrying pool and interact, we get a screen. I think I'd like to have it so that it auto opens a screen on stepping on that tile. We might change that to also be an interact at some point, but for now, let's just keep it simple. So if we take a look at the Goddess Realm scene, how do we transition right now? Core, Goddess Realm. So we have a transition tile. And a transition tile is basically going to perform this ability with this transition data associated with it. There are other types of tiles we can do, like an ability tile, and I believe this one is just a generic list of ability addressables. And so this one doesn't really know anything about what the data you're opening is. I'm going to quickly check around and make sure I'm right on this. Yeah, so yeah, it gets passed over to the tile, and the tile itself, when you load that tile, will then create a bunch of abilities based off of the on-enter ability addressable IDs. And I'm not sure exactly where it's happening, but somewhere in here, when we enter onto a new floor, aka a unit is placed on it, it queries responses, and it checks to see if there's any tile on enter abilities, and if there are, it will try and add that ability to a queue of responses, and then our turn order system says, okay, there's something that needs to happen before we go to the next player. Okay. So, that all being said, I think what I need to do then is I need to take this damage tile, and I'm going to make a new version of this, and we're going to call this like open exit, open checkpoint select screen. Maybe it's, yeah, it's probably not a terrible name for it. So we'll put that here where the transition tile was, and we'll turn off this transition tile. And then we're going to need a new ability for this. So let's close some of these folders that are in our way. Don't need art right now. And let's go into the interacts tiles. We have a couple of different transitions. Let's take a copy of the interact, I think, because it's going to be similar to this one. And then we're going to make this a tile one, and we're going to call this open. I guess this is, I misspoke or mistyped, but this is checkpoint select. This is like the hardest part sometimes of being a programmer, is just figuring out how to name things. Like, do I want this screen to be the open checkpoint, or I guess it would be the checkpoint select screen? I feel like it's not totally wrong, but it feels just wordy. Checkpoint select. Sure, we'll go with that. We can always rename later. So this is going to be a ability that is going to delay for a second, say that it's going to open the checkpoint select screen. It's going to play an audio for menu select. I don't know if that's right. Maybe we turn that off for now. It's going to open the screen, and it's going to wait for close, and then print that wait is complete. Okay, that seems fairly straightforward. We're going to need to give this an addressable ID. Checkpoint. And this is not an interact, this is a tile ability. Not really going to matter, but I like having things be consistently named. And I overwrote the wrong one. We want to overwrite this one. Cool. So when we step here, it should try and perform this ability, which will try and open this new screen. But we need to make that screen now, which is something we haven't done since we've started streaming again. I'm pretty sure we've shown some of the system when we were doing Era of Embers streaming a while back, but this will be the first time since these new set of streams that we've kind of looked at any of the setup here for making a new bit of UI. Okay, in here, let's make a new folder, and we will call this the checkpoint select. And then how do we make a new one? I haven't actually, it's honestly probably been a couple of years since I've made a new screen. Which one is going to be a good one to copy? Maybe we want to go down to Era of Embers and copy one of these ones, like main menu. Yeah, maybe that's, we'll copy main menu and see if that's a good choice as a starting point. Unity's going to open Visual Studio automatically for us because it feels like it. Okay, we're good. And we're going to drag all this stuff out here. We're going to rename all of these files. Going to be a lot of copy and pasting, I think, for the first little bit here. That's like one of the main problems I still have with some of this setup is it still feels like there's a lot of copy and pasting. But at the same time, it's still way quicker to set one up. Not what I meant to do. Okay. All right. So this is a screen which has a series of buttons. We probably don't need the background piece. Oh, I guess we will. We will need some sort of background image here. So let's bring up Aseprite and build something temporarily for now. Let's make a new file which needs to be... let's find out what was the size of this image. This was originally 640 by 360. And we will bring Aseprite over here in a second. All right. Let's start with this base one, and let's just... I guess we don't even need to really show much of this. We're just saving an image. That's what I thought. We're not in a good spot. Bear with me. There we go. Just trying to find the right folder. Don't want to be going through all the folder structure stuff. Backgrounds. In here, we will make a checkpoint select screen image. Okay. And then that should have been saved in here under art, backgrounds. It did, but I saved it out as a Aseprite file. I need to save it out as a PNG. There we go. All right. And then this can go at the top so that the list items appear in front. And the main menu was a system in which it had a series of fixed buttons. So we're going to change this to be... Instead of main menu, this will be checkpoint menu. There's a high probability you heard Drixie opening a can in the background. If you're curious what that noise was. Main menu, we don't want this one. We want to close up this folder so we stop having it take up space. Why are you mad? Oh, is it because I haven't actually gone through and renamed these files? Yes. This is now this. I'm not sure what data this menu is going to be using right now. But we will just get it set up. Because I think we'll probably need to build some sort of new data structure to hold this information. Okay, so at the top, we're going to have a menu, which will be this. We will no longer have main menu. Then we're going to have a series of buttons. Like so. Actually, this works out well because we can just use the main menu system of string values to kind of debug test this. So we'll have checkpoint 1, and then this is less about opening a screen in this specific spot as well as much as opening a room. So what was the location that we were opening originally? This. Yeah, there's going to need to be more data associated with this. See if we can get it done with just this to start. Okay, and then we'll remove this one, and then we will delete these other entries. Okay, and then we will add 2 for now, just to make sure that going up and down through the menu works, because 2 is going to be the minimum to see everything working. And then we'll just rename the text. This will get updated by the screen, but we'll do that. Okay. Can we reduce? Yeah, that'll work for now. And then inside of this button, we're going to change this to maybe be room A, just for testing purposes. And we'll have to set up some logic to actually have A be a spawn-in location. We don't need any of this data for our purposes, and we will just need to rehook back up the menu. And this screen, actually, this should be this one. And it will be taking a menu, and it will no longer need a unit status list. I also have to rename the entity to match. Don't need this, and thus can remove any other references to it. We are going to have to modify this on submit. It is going to need to do something similar to what the ability was doing before to auto transition us to the next room. Which is going to be this ability to transition. Register scene transition. This is a sequence step. What does this do? This is just registering next transition with transition data. I think that should be fine. We can grab this wholesale and slam that in there. It's going to get mad because it doesn't know about that, but we can say using infinite retries, which should be fair. In fact, this should be an infinite retries screen, so now we can just use the correct namespace. And then we just need to construct a transition data. The transition data should look something like this. Does this have an actual constructor? It doesn't. We can probably use an inline constructor like this. And what data do we need to populate in here? We need the name of the scene, which is going to be the information in the button object. So if we take a look at data and we do data dot stored data, the information on the button, and get argument 1, that should be the second string that we put into the button object. In here. The first ID will be the localization ID string, which right now we don't have a localization system, so that will just be used wholesale as the thing we display. But this is the next screen ID, which for our purposes is actually the scene we're going to. Okay, I think that all checks out. A little confusing, but that's because we're kind of hacking some systems together a little bit here. What were we normally going to? In here, we were normally going to the combat base screen, so we can just hard code that. And we would often be going to a specific spawn ID. For the sake of the entering into the world, we can assume it's always a revive entrance when we're starting a new run. And then lastly here we have which scene transition to use, or more accurately, what transition screen. Because we have, like, the cloud, when the cloud cover comes over, that's technically a different screen that we're transitioning with. This one's just a blank one, so because everything falls out and everything goes black, and so we don't really need to cover it when everything comes back in. Okay, so this is the transition data. The only thing that's unique here is going to be based off what button we press, which room we're going to. Otherwise, all of this information will need to be the same. And that'll register the switch, and hopefully we shouldn't need anything else from the ability itself in order to actually trigger the teleport, aka beginning of a run. So now we need to do a little bit more work in the screen transition system. So we're going to need to make a new folder for checkpoint select. And checkpoint select is going to need to do a open and close. It's going to be very similar to the skill first level, I believe. So we'll use that as a base. Checkpoint select screen close, and checkpoint select screen open. All right, and then we will directly add these to the transition manager, I think, for now. We're going to need, because of a weird bug we have still, we're going to need to go from combat base to checkpoint select. And we should just have to open checkpoint select. And then we're going to need the inverse, so checkpoint select to combat base. And then we will do close. And then we also need to do the exact same stuff, but for cutscene, because we still have that issue where it is kind of doing both depending on where you come from, whether you're starting in this area or you're coming back from a run. It kind of operates a little differently. Okay, and so those transitions should allow us to switch between. Now this is going to need to call out what we're opening and closing, what we're toggling essentially, which should be this, which needs to be renamed to checkpoint select components. And while we're at it, we'll also modify that. And we'll modify this. We'll leave the other names what they are for now, because I think we might rework some of the layout here. I'm going to do a quick check in here for any other entities. It looks like These two are the only ones, and they have both been renamed. We don't want to have any duplicate entity IDs. It tends to cause really bad things to happen, so want to double check that. And then we can come back up here. And this should toggle on and off that game object, is essentially what's happening when we switch between these screens. That should be enough for us to test. I'm realizing there is one potential problem here, which is that we need to close the screen when we transition. So we walk over here. This should open it. It did not. What did it do? Did we do anything? No information about checkpoint being opened. Okay. So let's start by validating that this is opening this ability. We're going to raycast the environment to make sure that we are properly updating our data. If we want to be super secure, we can validate that we are actually... inside the Goddess Realm tile data. There's only 49 of them, but who knows which one actually has the data we're looking for. Because we're looking for on ability enters. And I don't know of a good way of searching through this. This is not something I've had to do a lot of. I guess we can see if it has any entries here with this 0. Oh, that one had one. That is the entrance. Oh, if that's the case, it's probably near the top then. No. Okay, we'll go back to where we were. Oh, number 30 had one. Okay, so yeah, it is updating to be this information here. So when we step on that tile, it should activate this ability, which in turn should be doing a screen transition to this checkpoint select screen. Okay. Let's try again. Not doing it still, and I would expect to see a debug log with checkpoint in it. And we are just not seeing that information. Okay. Let's validate that this is doing anything. And the way we'll do that is by checking for on the tile. Go back. Nope. Don't. I want my tile stuff, not random Unity tile stuff. In here on Q response, this is where we should see it attempt to play the ability that is on the tile. That's fine, Unity. And I'm also, while we're here, just going to open up all the breakpoints. And we shouldn't need anything but the tile ones. In fact, we're going to delete anything that isn't that tile one, because Unity sometimes gets confused with breakpoints. I found it likes to lock up sometimes. Even if you have unselected checkpoints, it just will be stuck in that domain kind of dialogue forever. So sometimes just unlink all the checkpoints and then go again will get us past that problem. All right. So this is queuing a response immediately because we place the character, which is what's causing this transition in. Ooh, we're gonna queue every time. Okay, so we want to take rid of, we want to take away this breakpoint so that it only triggers when we enter into a tile, which we should be doing now. So it's trying to perform the ability, which is the on checkpoint select. Okay. It's going to check to see if it can target. Oh, we've got double audio. So it's going to target the Wisp player. Can sub-target. It said false. So it failed. It doesn't think this is a valid target for this ability. Let's take a look at this damage one. Oh, I guess the damage one works because it sets that it's valid inside of here. Specifically inside of damage, it sets that this was a valid target. And because we're copying an open screen one that doesn't have it, why does this one work? Wouldn't our standard stuff have the same problem? Interesting. That's not going to set valid. That's not going to set valid. So I think, let's take a look. At all the places where we say valid. Move, custom damage, damage symbol, jump, and push abilities. This is a hack, but I don't think that's the problem. Alright, let's dig deeper. Where does set valid do its magic? Here. And then it looks like get valid is how we determine. Specifically for the ability select screen we use it. For the targeting screen we set it to true. Effect driven. Effect driven. Interesting. I don't quite remember how I set this up. Normally when we jump back into code stuff that I haven't seen in a while, it just kind of comes to me and I'm like, oh, I remember how I did this. But this is not triggering. Well, two things. Let's get past this point. We're not in a call stack? No, we're not. Okay. So if we come back onto here, it's trying to check can target, and then it does a sub can target. Oh, so we're not even getting into the valid part. We're actually checking all of our targeters and seeing if any of them are valid. Okay. So I'm kind of looking at a couple of different systems. So can target spawn only is the thing that I care about. I need that effect or the equivalent one for on exit. Let's see what the exit version is doing. That has target player. Okay, so this is just being put in here to say, hey, this thing we're trying to do, this is a target player effect. We don't want it to happen for enemies. We just want the player to be able to transition or open this UI. And the damage tile didn't, or sorry, the interacts didn't need that because it doesn't use the same system of on enter. I guess the interacts don't check to see whether or not we can target. Only a ability does, or a on tile enter ability. I suppose that makes some sense, because an interact isn't something an enemy can do anyways, but an on tile enter is something that we kind of want to validate that only the player can do. So we say that we can target now. That's getting past that and into here. And then it's going to perform the ability, which I guess actually this might have been the only problem. It was not. I was expecting it could have opened the screen there. We do see the debug though, so it is saying opening checkpoint select screen now. Wait complete. So it is opening the screen and then immediately saying, yep, we're good. And we know that wait complete is checking to see if we're in combat base or in the cutscene, because we ran into that problem during the last stream. So it's calling to open it, but we don't see any actual opening effects. Okay, next step we'll do is we'll take a look at where we actually do the open. Screen, transition, sequence step. Put a breakpoint in here, and we'll try again. So we are trying to open the checkpoint select screen with the unit as information. It's coming into here. It's finding an instance of the screen controller. It's saying, hey, screen controller, I'd like to open this checkpoint select screen. It's going to ask our entity manager. I'm going to guess that our entity manager doesn't find it. It does not. Okay. So checkpoint select screen is invalid. Oh, of course. So we've created the prefab, but we never actually went into our UI system and added the prefab for the new screen. Okay. Again, there's a lot of copy and pasting to setting up a new screen. I'd like it to be more, like, simplistic in a lot of ways. But at the same time, there will always be some level of data entry or processing to setting up a new screen. It is a new thing. It will require some amount of work. So this will exist here. And then just going to double check if we come in here, we should have that entity. Yeah. So it was essentially failing to find, but we don't have any debug or prints that really say that. It's not something I think we directly want, because I can't... There might be situations where we might try and find an entity and it might be valid to not find anything. Okay, sorry. Double checking stream stuff. All right, here we go. And we're gonna hit the breakpoint. That's fine. We're gonna try and open it. I heard a sound. Ooh, okay, progress. It is upset because the menu list is incorrect. Okay, that's likely fair. Because of the way this one's built, it's probably manually constructing each of the buttons. It is. And so we need to actually give it the menu buttons in here, and we only have 2 now. That one's not too bad. All right. All right, I see what's going on. I had YouTube on top chat instead of live chat, so I may have missed some comments from folks on the YouTube side. All right, and we are back in. Let me see. Go down. We're going to hit a couple of breakpoints here, but I'm going to just skip past them. And we're here. Checkpoint. And if we hit back, we're able to move around fine. If we come back here, let's get rid of all the breakpoints. Screen comes back up again. Leave, come back, and we can swap between these two. And so in theory, if we hit this, we can hear the sound effect in the background that it is transporting us to room 1. And if we go in here, we should be able to see over here that we have transitioned to this location. So the problem is if we're transitioning from a screen, we're going to need to close that screen down. Is that something we can do in the ability? I guess it's going to kind of have to be. That'll need to be a new effect. We have screen transitions and we have waits, but we don't have any kind of closed screen. At least we don't have an ability effect for that. We probably do have a sequence step, I would imagine, which will be down here. Sequences, sequence steps, UI. No. Pop screen. Yes, so we can reuse this one. So what we'll do is we'll make a new ability effect. We will call this a pop screen ability effect. Open that up. And when we construct this, we will make a pop screen sequence step, which has 3 constructors. No, it doesn't. Takes no parameters because, yeah, it doesn't need anything, which means we also don't need any of this setup. We also don't need any of this information. So we're literally just adding a pop screen. Good. And then that might be one of the simpler ones we've had to build. So we're going to wait for screen close. Ooh, might have overkilled actually. Probably not a bad ability effect to have. But what we might be able to do is just inside of the checkpoint select screen. I suppose we could just do a screen controller instance dot pop screen after we register the transition. And that should also work. Because technically it's coming from within the button submit of that screen, so it makes sense for that screen to know that it needs to close. Okay. So now we will need to copy the spot where we teleport in. Dungeons, forest, the first one. We're going to grab the goddess statue prop just for clarity and the spawn tile revive. We're going to copy both of those and we're going to go over to, what did I say, A? And we're going to paste those in, sure, right there. Lightning enter scene effect, revive location, facing east. These are all fine. The only thing we are missing is I needed one more thing I needed to copy. So the lightning is a bit of a hack right now. When we do that lightning strike, we quite literally have a prefab in the scene called Anim Beam of Lightning, and this object just gets fired. I'd like to have this to be a prefab that we can instantiate, but I haven't quite figured out how I want to handle that system yet. So for the time being, this works okay, because we always know exactly where we're reviving, so we can just have this fixed object. Which realistically should have some sort of icon to let us know that there's an object there. And now, if we set our revive location to be here. Nope, this one. When we hit play, we should see us zap into place here. No. That did not work. I'm gonna guess that's because of something else from the first scene. We have a bunch of these blue dots which are start revealed locations. So we might need to start reveal the goddess statue area in order for this to work. In fact, we may have already had a few of those. Yeah, we had one already we could use. So we'll have to start with this tile revealed. And then we can also do a few more around. Realistically, this won't be needed in real gameplay because you'll have to have walked up to this statue in order to have unlocked it, which is the next thing we'll be doing here in a moment. Just double check to make sure that's fired. Still fails. And not only does it fail, but it also doesn't auto-populate any of those positions. We want to spawn in on revive entrance. We want to start with combat base. We have our default music. We're not overriding the player. That's all fine. What is it about room 001 that allows us to Interesting. Why does this not work? The entrance, it should be using this. This should all be the same. Okay, we will have to go through some breakpoints. Oh, really? I just realized it may have done something silly with the YouTube naming. I thought I had modified this. The YouTube video is still called Attack Combos. Checkpoints. Renamed? Cool, that should be better. Okay, unlockable characters with the Hydration Redeem. Alright, hydration complete. Well, I'm kind of at a loss on this one, so I guess we just start debugging. I'm just going to validate that if we choose a normal spawn tile... No, that shouldn't matter either. Sorry, I'm just trying to think about other reasons why this might be broken. Okay, they start fine here and load in. Oh, where is the goddess statue? They're not under the room. Okay, yeah, so this... Okay. That's why it makes no sense. I'm like, there's no reason why it shouldn't be working. But the reason is quite simply that it's not in the right location. Because all of the generate level data stuff only operates on the objects that are under it. So just spawning it in a incorrect location would make it so nothing's happening. I think more the bug that I would want to fix here is making it so that if we choose an entity spawn ID that is incorrect, that we get some sort of error. Okay, so these tiles start spawned in. I'm gonna guess that I think I do some sort of like reveal on load of the character that like reveals so many tiles around you. That's what causes some of the tiles to appear as you walk into rooms. Yeah, so this one gets a little buggy. So we would just want to make sure that we maybe have a couple more start on spawn, just for the time being. Because I kind of like this idea that like when you enter into a room, you also see the statue immediately as well. Okay, so that'll probably feel a little bit better. Yeah, okay. And then if we go back to the goddess realm, we should be able to just choose which checkpoint we want to start at. Okay. Just going to make sure, again, we can back out of that fine. But if we choose checkpoint 2, we spawn in this room. As easy as that. These bats still have a large amount of health. Okay, well, that's pretty cool. What next? So we have it so that we can choose a checkpoint, but I'd like it so that those checkpoints are dynamic. So based off of which checkpoints you found in the world, it will show only those in the menu list instead of it being right now a fixed menu list of 2 specific locations in the screen. So it should be a dynamic bit of data. So it should build this menu list out of however many checkpoints are available. We're also going to need a way to add checkpoints to the available list. So when we walk up to a new statue, and for now I'll say interact with it. Maybe it's something where it's just walk up close to it and it activates. But I think interact is fine for the time being. That will register that checkpoint as an available one for you to use. So we need some way of tracking which checkpoints you have and haven't unlocked. And that system needs to start with the very first checkpoint being available to you. I also think I'd like to make it so that the checkpoint select screen, if it detects you only have the first checkpoint, just auto sends you into the world. Okay, a couple of different tasks. Let's start by figuring out how we're going to track checkpoints. So if we go into our backend state manager, which is essentially our save system, backend state manager, and we look at some of these, do any of these make sense to store? So we have the clock, which keeps track of your time in a run, your calendar, which is something we're not currently using, the quest manager, which we're not currently talking about, the explore manager, which we're not currently talking about, the progress manager. Oh, this is tracking the number of enemies and tiles revealed and enemies defeated. Yeah, that doesn't seem like a good spot for this. And then we have the unit manager. I mean, I could see... I guess I could see a case for the progress manager keeping track of the checkpoints. But this is really more about the progress in a run, whereas how many checkpoints you've unlocked is more of like a meta experience. I still feel like there's something about the state manager that needs to be broken down a little bit more. All of this stuff is happening essentially at a forever level, and I think we need a per run level at some point. The other thing maybe worth looking into is the flag manager. So we haven't looked at this thing at all because it's not really super needed at this time, but essentially a flag is an interface value or an interface, and we can have a bunch of different types of flags. So we can have like a collect flag, which wants us to do some sort of collect of a specific amount of a given item. We can have a location flag, which is something to do with like a different screen management system. What's a set flag? A set flag is basically a default flag that has some description associated with it, and we can set and get its current state, but otherwise we're not keeping track of like any additional data. Like the defeat flag is keeping track of on enemy deaths basically, and then incrementing the current state's progress amount. What is current state, by the way? It's a flag state. And a flag state can have its design data ID, its progress amount, and the actual status of that flag, which can be not started, which is basically this similar to not set, active, which is basically an in progress version of a flag, and then complete, which is it's done. And this is useful for, like, if we get a quest, we might have a quest not started, we might have a quest that's currently active, and we might have a quest that's complete. And we might have certain things that check the status of a flag to be like, hey, only play this cutscene or this dialogue with the goddess if this specific quest flag or this specific thing has happened and is completed. Whereas we might have other things like a cutscene that plays only if something is active. So if a certain flag for, you've finished the forest but you haven't beaten the boss, like you've explored every room but you haven't beaten the boss, could be a flag that we track. And when that's active but not complete, we might have a different cutscene. That's maybe not the best example, but the reason I bring all this up is it's possible we could think about the goddess statues as flags. So we could have like a checkpoint flag, which if it's not started, then we don't have that checkpoint. If it's active, that checkpoint is available to us. Or complete. I can't think of a situation where we'd want to differentiate between the two of these. Like, what would it mean to have a checkpoint be active versus a checkpoint that's completed? Probably not a whole lot. This system is just, as I just explained, there is value in having 3 states for this, but not every flag will need to have 3 states. Sometimes it's just good enough to say on, off. So if we had a checkpoint flag, we could this might work actually. The thing that's tricky is when we say that a specific checkpoint is true, that flag is ready, it's active, it's complete, whatever, which one I decide to choose to indicate that you've unlocked it. I need to know where that flag goes. So simply knowing that a flag is unlocked doesn't tell me which scene you need to load into. So the design data of the flag would probably need to hold that information. If we take a look at some of the design data in here, this flag has a quest design data. What does a flag design data have? It has a string parameter, it has an amount, and it has an override description. And we say that the parameter in this comment is to defeat or collect, because that was what we really built. But this parameter could be anything. It could also be information about which scene we enter with. I don't know if this is the right way to do this, but it feels like it's close. And rather than build a whole new system from scratch, I think I want to at least attempt building the checkpoint system on top of these flags. And if it feels like it's kind of trying to shoehorn it in here and it doesn't work in the end, then we'll come up with a new system. But if we can repurpose this, I think it will be better in the long run. So which of these do we want to use? Set flag seems like the simplest. I guess, do we even need a different version than set flag? The reason that we have collect and defeat is because we need additional information to be tracked. We have different ways that we treat some of these functions for setting the flag. The quest one obviously has like quest design data associated with it. Could the goddess just be a set flag? because all it would need to have is a parameter inside of the existing flag design data for where we're going. And we just need to set it not set or complete. I think this might be fine. How do we construct these? We take in flag design data based off flag type. Okay, let's give this a shot. So if we open up our data sets in here and we take a look at our flags, we can see we have a couple of different examples in here. But if we make a... what would this be? I guess for now we can just call it like checkpoint forest 001. It will be of type set. It won't have a defeat or collect, but it will start as not started. This has a defeat parameter and a collect parameter. I need to take a look at the parser for how we parse flags. Set is element 4 in the spreadsheet. Well, that doesn't make any sense. I see how I do this. Do we not use this parameter at all currently for a set flag? It looks like no. Collect and defeat do. This is part of the collect logic. Yeah, I don't think when it is of type set that we ever use this, which did I see in the spreadsheet? Needed question mark. Okay. Go away. Silly AI, I don't need to convert this to a table. I think this section can be removed and we don't need it. I think I set it up this way with the thought that I might want to be able to have this parameter do something. But I really don't think we need to. No, too high intensity. Let's do... too low intensity. Sure. Okay. No, too distracting. Okay, I don't think we're using this parameter for set. If we go look at set flag, does it actually call out the parameter anywhere in here? It does not. So there was an idea that we might set the initial flag value. Based off of the design data, but we just don't do that. So I think we can do something where we remove the idea that this can be, it could still be a drop down of some kind. If it needed to be. but I'm going to repurpose this as just being the string value I'm going to need, which let's go back to here. We wanted this for the first checkpoint. And then this one was going to be A. And then this is checkpoint 400A, which is a set type flag, and this is its parameter, which is what it does when you... It is the location you're going to, is what this value is, essentially. Okay, let's download that file. Download TSV. And we are going to save over the flags TSV. And then we are going to come back over here and we are going to go into the tools, infinite retries, and we are going to do the flag parser. And we're going to validate that that did what we expected. TSVs, JSON should be somewhere nearby. Here. Flag design data. Here's our JSON. So we have a couple of sets with these parameters as their defaults. Okay. This means that when we enter into the game, we should have those flags be constructed and they will be defaulted to not set. And then I immediately need the functionality we just removed. So I need some way of defining that this set flag is defaulted to complete, we'll say. Because we should start with this checkpoint already active. If we look at the parser, I think it might make sense for us to add a new column. This grabs the amount. This builds it all into the design data. This has a flag type. Does not actually have a parameter for the default value. Okay. I don't think this is specific to the flag types. I think this is something I just want, is the ability to set a flag's initial status. I think that's what makes this a little weird, is I was trying to build it directly into the set type flag, but I think any flag should be able to have a default status. And I don't think it's here. I think it might be the first thing we do. If entry 2 is not empty or null, then we want to parse it as a flag status. Nope, not state, status. Okay. And this is also, that's why it's giving a red text, because this was also the same mistake. That should be status, not state. And then all of these get incremented by 1, going up a column. 6 and 7. Okay. Now we can go back into the spreadsheets. We can grab this one here and we can drag it right here. So first thing we do is the flag type. Then we do initial flag status. And then we want to grab this rule and we want to change this from actually, let's go do it this way. Data validation. Correct, but we want to instead do C1 to C1000. Okay. And by C1, I mean C2. Done. Correct. Excellent. And then we can set this one to completed. Or is it active? I'm going to say active. Maybe there's a world in which we want to have a completed checkpoint. Like this checkpoint is no longer available and it's completed. So maybe active does make more sense. So we're going to default this to active. These ones are empty and that's fine because now it won't parse it. This is all still fine. These should not be needed. This can be set to completed if that mattered. I don't think it did. A lot of this was me just testing the flag system, so none of these parameters are actually really being used for anything except for boot intro, which is how the dialogue scene starts. Okay, so or the very first scene with the goddess, which I think we're overriding right now to turn off. Okay, I think that's right. So we're gonna bring that back in again. Download that TSV to the folder. Flags, save over, replace. Come back in here. Infinite retries, flag parser. So this is a flag status of 1. Everything else should have a flag status of 0 by default. Perfect. Which is essentially equivalent to not started. Now, for flag construction, we can find that inside of the flag backend manager. This is where we add all the flags. We're going to create, and as part of create, we're going to go into each of these. And then we initialize with the helper. And we're going to add a new parameter to this helper, which is used in 6 different spots. But we're going to make it a default parameter so that we don't have to set it if we don't want. And this will determine what the default state of the flag is. And then if we go into the set flag, we can give this whatever the design data default value is. It's thinking good. Perfect. And then we can do the same thing for defeat because defeat comes from the same design data, and the same thing for collect. Okay, so now they can have a default state. So what do we do with that? We have a way to be able to see which checkpoints are active in the form of this flag system. And we can tell based off that flag's parameter where we should load. But this data is currently hard-coded inside of these buttons. So I think we need to change up the way this is operating. So this menu does a bit of magic, but it's one of the few menus that operate this way. Most menus actually generate their buttons at runtime based off of some other data. So if we take a look at, what's a good example of this? I think it's going to be better to go down into Heir of Embers. And we can take a look at... Oh, I lie. We can actually take a look at the skill screen, which we copied up here. So we can take a look at Infinite Retries skill screen. Unlockable characters with the stretch redeem. We're going to give Raising the Desk a chance. I actually feel like... Panic as I realize I'm going on the wrong button and I was raising the desk too high. But we're fine. Nothing tipped. Okay. We are standing and we are stretching. Alright. So, we need to instead generate these buttons. And we want to look at the skill screen, which is going to be inside of scripts, skill. So they have a prefab for their button. So let's grab this button as an example. Let's bring it up into, went too far, checkpoint select. So we can call this checkpoint button. Seems reasonable. We're probably better off just replacing this button. Ooh, interesting, actually. What does this button have on it? It has its data-driven parent. Okay. I think the buttons we already have are probably fine. So what we will do is we will grab this and bring it in here to make it into a prefab, and we will rename it to checkpoint button. And we are going to want to go into our screen system. Inside of here, and we're going to need to hook up a new UI pool for this new button. So this will be the checkpoint button pool. We'll point to this one. Okay. I want to keep this reference, but I want to name this prefab to just be button. All right. So we should have a checkpoint button, which is mapped to this prefab. It'll make 32 of them to default, which is probably way more than we need, but haven't had any performance issues, so that's fine. Now, a regular button like the skill screen one does not have a just kind of base component on it that says what it does. They usually work off of like some data-driven systems. So in this situation, it has like a data-driven parent, which is of the type ability spec, and it has a bunch of little components that all do little tiny bite-sized operations on this UI piece based off of the data that's being passed in. So given whatever ability spec this button has, it will update the equip icon and the mastery icon to be on and off. And that's just one thing it does. And if I want to, I can remove parts of the functionality or add more functionality, and they're all modular. But we do kind of need to have some of these base components for whatever data we're operating on. In this situation, I think we need a new data-driven parent component and some new child components for a flag, which is a weird concept and might get out of control later. But we'll start here. We seem to be having performance issues with Visual Studio. Hard broken? Maybe? Oh yeah. It is very upset for copy and pasting one component. I believe in you. I believe in you, Visual Studio. You can do this. Okay, I no longer believe that it can do this. Close. Fail. Do something. Oh. I think it may have figured it out when I clicked into Unity. Alright. Flag data driven parent component. Sure. Now, what does this take? Does it take an I flag? I don't think so, because the only data we'll be able to get from that is its status. Because something like a quest flag doesn't really use... It does have a design data, but it's a quest design data. So it's a different type of design data object, which means we wouldn't really be able to write like an interface function called like get design data, because we won't know what type of data we're even going to be storing in here, because different flags have different things they hold. This one has a location design data, and this one has a moment design data. Interesting problem. I could make it so all of these have like one parent design data that they all work off of, and they all have to have some expectation that they share some logic. But what is even like the difference between like a quest design data? I mean, it still has an ID. And it has like a title and description. Like maybe those could be universal. Like I'm wondering if there's maybe some sort of universal design data that all of these could share. And then instead of this, then we could use an interface here. That's a neat idea. For now, to just keep moving forward, we're going to do a... can I not do a set flag? I can. Okay. So I can do a... Wait, why is this an error? Set flag is less... I'm sorry, this is a new one for me. Why are you complaining? Okay, this is tile. Set flag. It doesn't like set flag as a data type. And if we look at something like the, say like tile design data, that's like a mono behavior too. And is it simply because it's not a public class? Oh, it is. Weird. Okay. Okay. I don't know why it's doing... Oh, Unity crashed. Mm-hmm. Okay, well, it did not like that at all. Well, we'll start again. Okay, what state are we in? It just has a bunch of folders open. We want to come down into here. We were looking at this. This is still fine. Okay, I think we're all right. So I'm just going to close up some of these folders we don't need. We're going to come look at the checkpoint select. We're going to look at the button. Instead of having this menu button, it's going to have a set flag design driven parent. And then we're going to need some subcomponents. Specifically only one to just show information. That's not where I wanted that folder. I want that folder under here. Set flag components. And we essentially just need a name one, so we'll copy this ability spec name. Okay, at least that's getting faster. Set flag name component. Okay, and this is going to take a set flag design data, and then from that it's going to try and get, well, we can get description, we can get flag state. I don't think we need get description. This is called override description because sometimes we want to generate the description based off of the amounts and the parameters for like what we're defeating and how many. I think we need like just a straight title parameter, which we currently don't have. which is another thing we'll have to add. Yeah, because we convert the ID name into an integer, so we don't have that we can use. Okay. Starting to feel like this is... I think the idea of using the flags to track whether or not we have unlocked a checkpoint is feeling right to me. But the way that we're doing this for specifically set flag is making me feel like maybe we should be doing this generically for all flag types. Like all flags should potentially have a title and a description associated with them, and there should be some more base logic to a flag that is more universal. But again, we can deal with that later. Okay, so we're going to display this. I might also find this is the one instance where we need this, and so it might not be worth building up all of that logic for something we just don't really need. I'm going to, for the time being, modify the parser to just grab the first entry and make that the title. Whatever element 1 is, that is both the type... Oh no, sorry, the ID. The ID has already been hashed. Okay, element 0. Element 0 will be our title and our ID. Eventually I will like to break this out into its own column that we can track separately. Okay. So if we reparse the flags, then we go take a look at the JSON folder, take a look at the flag data. Each of these should now have a title. Is this the best title in the world? No. Again, we should probably make an actual column for that. But that should be enough that we should be able to do a set flag name component, giving it the button text. And then that will grab the set flags title and set that object. I think that'll work. That'll be enough to test this. So we've set up the pools for these. We've set it up so this information will display. The only other thing we might want to do is just make this longer. Because if we need to put in... this as the name, yeah, it's gonna overflow. So we'll just extend it to there for now. And we can bring it back down again later. And then I'm just going to rename that text so that we know that it actually functions when we bring everything up. Okay, next step. So we've made the button, we've set up some new information, shouldn't need this for reference anymore. In here, we won't need these two buttons. We can zero this data out, I'm pretty sure. If we take a look at the skill screen and take a look at its menus, this one here, menu list, yeah, by default it is 0. Okay, so we can leave that as 0 here as well. And then this checkpoint select menu, we should take a look at the skill screen and see how its known menu, no, skill menu operates. So this thing is populating the buttons based off of some given data. So we can grab this. And we want to do the same thing. In fact, we probably want to copy this whole class. And we want to try and get our checkpoint system to do something similar. Grab this, put this here. The data we're going to need is going to be data-driven menu component. The first parameter is the data we're going to pass. No, the first parameter is what type of objects we're going to set up. So in this case, we're going to be setting up objects that have set flag data, and we are going to take in a list of set flags. Okay, so that means that in here, this will be a list of set flags. Checkpoints. And we are going to loop through the given checkpoints. We're working in reverse here, so this will make sense. We're coming to the end. So we'll just call it set flag. So we're gonna go through these set flags for the checkpoints. We're going to pass in each flag as a parameter. We are going to, I believe we gave the ID for the poolable objects to be the same as the name of the prefab. So we're going to go find that prefab from the poolable objects. We're going to create one. We're going to set it to be the list parent. We're going to grab the button and add it to the menu component system. And then we shouldn't need any of this. Okay. This needs the menu component, which will be data-driven menu component. What is that parameter? The list parameter is this one. Again, we'll go back to skills to see how it's set up. Its menu is this one. What is this component? The ability spec menu component, which is this object. Oh, what are you? Okay. Sure. I don't know what this class is doing, but clearly my infrastructure requires some sort of setup here for a menu component. So we're going to just make one, and we're going to assume everything else I wrote years ago just works. Okay, and this will need set flag as its data. We're going to go back into the screen, and then we will need to add this here and then drag that up into here. Oh, interesting. So it's doing a bunch of initialization on that component. So what is this component that we have here? Oh, this is what tracks all the buttons and creates everything and handles updating the selections and the button presses and all of that stuff. But we just need a different one for the typing, because when we do the callback, we need to send the information back through. Right, okay. This is doing a ton of work for us. We just need to set up one additional class that feels weird and you can't really see what it's doing, but it's this is doing a ton of heavy lifting, and the only thing that needs to be defined inside of it is just the data type, so it can get back to the class properly. Cool, so that should all be set up. So then we just need to come back into the screen. This is going to now need to be a menu screen that will operate on the right kind of data, which will be, I think, whatever data this takes, I think. Needs to be a single type. Okay, let's take a look at the skill screen. This one. Ability spec. Okay, so the menu screen just needs to know the equivalent for us on this one is going to be the first parameter, which is the data type. Okay, so this is what type of data this operates on. This menu operates on set flag. And that's mostly so that when we do the on submit, we know what type of data we're looking for from our poolable screen components. All right. And now inside of here, we should be able to get parameter. We do not have a get parameter yet. Yeah, these things are not super flexible. They're very heavily encapsulated, is what I should say. All right. So now we should be able to get the parameter value from the button, which we know will be the screen or the scene that we are going to. All right. Last thing we need to do here now is if we look at the skill select screen for reference, it looks like we need to set up a component for the menu. Is something here, and this will take a list of set flags, and then in open we're going to need to update the menu with the actual information we want to display. And this is where the rubber hits the road. We're going to need to get the data. So if we do, I think we can just not flag, factory, manager, backend. Okay, so that means we need backend state manager, which should have access to the flags. And we can get a specific flag by ID. We can check the status of the flag, and we can set the status of the flag, but we can't get a list of flags of a... Oh, okay. Here's what we can do. We can do utils. We will need to think a little bit more about how we will make this work long term. But in the short term, we can cast the data we get back as a set flag. And then we can have... Yeah, this is going to require more work. I need the IDs. That's what I'm looking for. So we're manually going to have to grab both flags right now and check flag 1 and flag 2, which is less than ideal. We would prefer to have this be generically accessible so that we can just be like, hey, get all checkpoint flags, and any checkpoint flag that's active should be added to this list for our menu. Who asked in YouTube chat says, wanted to say your game looks really cool. I'm digging the tile animations. Thank you. I appreciate you dropping a comment and stopping by to say so. We have been deep in the coding lands this evening, though. Lots of copy and pasting, lots of rebuilding. Get status. Right. We get the state, and then we can get the status from the state. Slightly confusing naming, but the state is the thing we save. The status is the current status we're looking for. Okay, so we're essentially going to need to make a list of flag states, set flags. This will be active checkpoints. Yeah, there's like one small piece we're missing here. It's just this concept of like, it's really just the concept of which flags are checkpoint flags. So if we had another system that like knew all of the checkpoints, this would be fine. You know, let me think on it while we test. I'm not gonna, I think I have an idea. In theory, though, this should be functional. Not great code, but we should be able to see. Let's pause the background music so we can hear the in-game music. Drag this open. We should step here. We should get the... Ooh. We should get the screen to open, but we get a null reference. We never finished setting up the prefab. So we set this new screen here. We made the new parameter for menu, but we did not drag it in here or here. There we go, this one. Here and here, perfect. Now we should be able to see it. Ooh, another problem. Failed to find the object in the game object pool. Okay, so if we take a look at the front end, UI pools. Oh, when we crashed, it didn't save. Okay, okay. That's fine. I think we're close. We're gonna activate the active music. We just need to, oh, wrong button. We just need to fix this issue that was because of a crash. Not what I wanted to open. Infinite retries. Front end. UI pools. Copy this one. Not twice. Name of the prefab is this. We're going to grab this information. We're going to paste it in here. And we're going to rename the pool and get rid of... Nope. Get rid of the underscore. Perfect. Save. Now we go back to the Goddess Realm. We walk up and we should see one button. We should see one button for the default active flag. I'm going to keep the intense music. We'll mute the in-game music. Oh, why? We're so close. Still on the allocate. So we're trying to allocate a game object of checkpoint button. UI pools, checkpoint button is here. It still missed my entry. I'm positive we clicked on this, but... Enter. Enter. Save. Thank you. Sometimes Unity does not like to save something in a box when you click away if you're clicking the inspector to something else. Alright. Alright. Here we go. We're going to walk up. We're going to see the screen open, and we are going to see a single button, which will be for the one checkpoint. For checkpoint 01. Okay. And we load in. Now, if we go into the JSON data for the flags, and we set this one's parameter for its status to also be active by changing it to 1 in here, just to hack it through, let's see, it should show us two buttons. One for the first one, and one, or for the first room, and then one for room A. It's not perfect, but it works. The question now is, how do we make it better? I think my first thought is we have this flag design data which we loop through and create all of these different flags. And my thought was we want to do this, we want to put these two new entries inside of the flag design data because they are similar to existing flags. They are of the type defeat, collect, or set. And I didn't want to make a new type of flag called checkpoint because it's mostly doing the same thing all the other sets have been doing. But maybe that's the wrong approach. Maybe what we want to do is we want to have a different set of design data, and this can be for the checkpoint flags, and they're going to be treated the same way as everything else. So they will still just be set flags, and we can just hide these two parameters because we'll never get them, and we won't need this one either. They'll still be parsed as if they were a normal flag design data, but they will be separated into their own JSON file. I'm gonna follow this through. I'm not all the way through figuring this out, but we're gonna work through it. So we're gonna make a new game data, just saving the file. Okay. So we've made a new TSV in here, checkpoint flag, which has these two parameters in it. And then we're going to come into this one and we will remove these two. I think I want to do that. Okay. IT flag parse. And that removed them from the JSON after parsing. Okay. Now we're going to go into the flag parser. This is parse flags. We're going to copy all of this. Yeah. Yeah, okay. There's some ways to clean this up. For now, we're going to just... There's like some functioning that we could do to make this so that we don't have to write as much code over and over again. But we're going to just do this. I think this is fine. Yeah, there's a lot of repetitive data that's going to be okay. We need to know the name of the file that I just created in the TSV folder. Checkpoint flag should be like that. We're going to make a new JSON file called checkpoint flag design data. It's going to do the exact same parse. It'll save it out to this JSON. We need to do the import asset, which causes it to reload properly. That's what this is trying to refer to. This is a really important line. If you don't add this line when you're doing like data entry and data modification stuff in Unity, you'll run into some weird issues. Or you can right click and re-import everything if you want every time, but this just makes your life a lot easier. Okay, so this is going to make a new JSON file specifically for checkpoint flag. It's going to serialize it out as a flag design data holder. Is that what we want? It is a flag design data, but technically speaking, it's a different object. Again, following this through, I'm not sure where this goes, but we're gonna take this idea and run with it. I might scrap all this and revert all these changes, but I just want to see if this makes sense. I still think it's a flag design data. It's just a different holder. Where does this get used? Backend. This is all using it. Loader. Here. Data loader. This is the infinite retries version. We're going to load checkpoint flag data. And based off of what we named things in the parser, we should be trying to load this design data. And this should load in this information into the checkpoint flag holder. Now, if we go into the backend flag manager, we should be able to generate in the same way that we generate a bunch of flags based off of the flag design data holder and the quest design data and the location. These are like other design datas that want flags. We can now have a generate a flag for every checkpoint. This just feels weird because we know that a checkpoint flag is essentially just a flag design data. They're identical in their construction, at least for the time being. Maybe they deviate in the long term, but I think we want them in a separate set of data. Because then we do the exact same logic we were doing here. We're going to loop through, run through the design data. We're going to create some flags based off of it. We're going to add their entries. That should all be okay. We're constructing this properly. It's getting It's getting initialized here with the JSON data. It's getting used inside of the flag backend manager. And this is where we construct it. I'm just going to double check here where else was this used in case there's something else we need to do with it. Initialize. Ah, there is. We also need to make sure that we don't move on. Checkpoint flag design data holder. We need to make sure the data is loaded before we can continue with the game. A lot of things wait on is design data loading complete. So that's a really important step. Okay, this is just constructing. This is where things fall apart. Okay. Well, we wanted to naturally progress through it. So this is the moment where this doesn't work anymore. Because get design data for getting the title is not going to operate correctly because a set flag assumes that we are going to be coming from a flag design data holder, not a checkpoint flag design data holder. This is frustrating. Okay, so if we want to do this, we will need to make checkpoints their own. They're going to have to be their own separate design data that are virtually identical to a normal flag design data. The reason that we're trying to do all this, though, is because if we make them all separate in their own holder, then if we go back to the checkpoint select screen, instead of doing this logic, instead we can loop through all of this. Oh, right. I need to access it via the data storage. Actually, I don't think I need that. I can just do keys, which will be all the integers. Yeah. If it's its own holder, we can just loop through all the data for every single checkpoint and check to see every single checkpoint if it's active. And if it's active, we can add it. This is what we want. Okay. Okay, here's what we're going to do. We are going to break this out. We're going to have to make it so that there's going to be a new type of flag, which will be a checkpoint flag. It'll be identical to set flag. We can still use the same, like, format as a flag design data. This part is okay. Yeah, we basically just need a new data type here that isn't set flag. So it kind of all comes back to this idea. At the very beginning, I made a choice. Do I need a checkpoint flag? And I said no, because set flag should be able to do everything that a checkpoint flag would be able to do. But what I didn't see was that I need some way of differentiating them from other flags. That just by their very nature, a checkpoint flag needs to be distinguishable from a regular set flag. And there's a couple other ways we could do this as well, but I think this is fine. The trickiest thing here now is we have to go modify a bunch of our component stuff for the front end. So this now needs to be a checkpoint flag. This now needs to be a checkpoint flag. This now needs to be a checkpoint flag, and we should probably also rename it to... And we should probably do that for this one. I still think there's a world in which we probably want to just make these all generically just flag data-driven components that can just operate on iFlag, and then stuff that we need access to, like the title and the description, can just be a interfaced function that all flags need to implement. I guess we don't need this one anymore. Oh. It's like, why are you still complaining? Because I haven't finished replacing all of the parameters. Okay, so then we just need to go through the actual prefabs and make sure everything is set up correctly there. How long has this taken? Like 2 hours and 15 minutes. This has been like the longest task by a fairly large margin, and we like set up combos yesterday. Well, over the course of like 4 hours. Well, it was Monday. It wasn't even yesterday. But yeah, so 2 days ago we set up like combos over the course of like 4 hours, and I feel like we made a way more progress way more quickly. The difference here is partly that I also went into that stream knowing exactly what I wanted to do. Whereas on this one, I definitely feel a little bit more like we were figuring it out as we went. This all looks still correct. This is all still correctly hooked up. Yep. We'll check the button. The button is still all correctly set up, so Unity seemed to handle all the renaming okay. Okay, let's go in here and we'll do another flag parse. We ran into an error. File not found. Do I need to generate the JSON file first? It looks like I might. Huh, yeah. These files need to exist. My parser isn't smart enough to generate them for me. That's silly. Data loader broke. Oh, these aren't looking at the I see. They're addressables the way these JSONs are loaded. It's not looking at the name of the file, it's looking at this. Okay, easy mistake to make. One little step where I don't normally generate new design data holders very often. Perfect. Invalid cast. That makes sense. Okay, yeah, we're moving pretty fast. So if we go to the flag factory system, that should fix it. Alright, so what that was we had not changed it out to actually create the new checkpoint flag variation. And so it was trying to find a flag by the ID of Forest 001 or whatever, but it was finding it as a set flag instead of a checkpoint flag. Still doing that. That implies that the data here might still be populated as well. It is not, so I do not see an ID for that. Okay. So it's trying to get the flag by ID, but the flag it's finding is not a checkpoint flag, which means I've missed something. Something is still generating the ID to the wrong type. Is that in the flag factory? It is in the flag factory. Again, moving pretty quick here. There we go. But not too hard to figure out. A couple of silly little mistakes, but it is coming together. Okay, we come into here, we step here, we get checkpoint 1, and we can load into that checkpoint. If we go into the checkpoint design data and we set its status to 1, we will see the same behavior we saw before. So we spent probably like, I want to say 15-20 minutes rewriting a bunch of stuff. I still don't know if this was right, but essentially we've broken out the checkpoints into its own TSV, and it gets generated into its own JSON so that it can be handled as a separate object, and we can generate the checkpoints as their own flags so that rather than having to go through and check each one individually, we can just loop through every single checkpoint design data, and if any of them are active, we will add them to our list inside of the checkpoint select screen here. And if we add it to this list of active checkpoints, we will generate a UI button for it. And then if we go in and click that button, it will then load into that specific room as the checkpoint that you will start from. Again, a large amount of just copy, paste, manipulate, copy, paste, a little bit of figuring out how we want to architecture things. But the screen system overall is, I think, handy for generating this stuff quickly, because the thing about screens is it feels like this is still pretty slow, but it could be a lot slower. Maybe, I don't know. I've built the screen system to be highly flexible and like be able to handle reusing a lot of components for a lot of this stuff. But I guess when it comes to making a very simple screen that could be hard-coded, it like falls apart a little bit. Also, there's a new run animation in here that we probably haven't seen from any of the previous streams, but it's still a little poppy when it's returning to the idle in between each tile. We have a plan to fix that, but just FYI. I don't know, I want to defend the UI system after spending all this time to build one screen. But it feels like it's still slow. But at the same time, I also generated a whole list of buttons that's dynamic and can be handled, and I really only had to modify a couple of pieces of functionality. This screen mostly just needs to figure out what data it wants to do, what data it wants to use to create the buttons. Then it just needs to pass that data into the menu. Then I just have to write one onSubmit function. I have to write a little bit of code inside of the menu to really just what prefab we want to use and changing some variable names. Otherwise, this is pretty much identical to the skill one. We didn't need this button in the end, right? Yeah, no, this is carryover. And that's because we don't need to define any specific things for it. We instead just generate a checkpoint flag parent, which is going to search through and find all of the children ones. And this one here is just saying, hey, based off of the checkpoint flag data that was given to me, I just want to set some text information. So we had to create 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 scripts to build this new screen. And then we had to build a bunch of prefabs to generate all that we had to build a bunch of prefabs so that the screen exists, so that it is what it is, like, so that there's some UI, some images, some text is what I'm trying to say. And then we had to write a little bit of logic to actually have it so it transitions between some of our existing screens. And it's pretty straightforward in it's just activating something, but these can be more complicated. Like I can do UI fades, UI transitions, and all of these sequences can be more elaborate when we move between these screens. Yeah, it's not that bad. It's just front end work is just tedious. And I think I've built a system that makes that the tedious work less of a hassle. But at the end of the day, it's still a lot of just like, if you want to make a new screen, you gotta build a new screen. Like you gotta do a bunch of work to build it. It's just a lot of steps. I feel like maybe that's the thing that still feels off to me. I feel like there's a lot of repeated steps, and I almost want to have like some sort of button I can click that will generate a new folder for the and like new sequence objects here, which I know I'm going to need for every screen transition. I know it's going to need a new screen, a new prefab for the button, and a new menu. And like being able to hit a button that just says like generate all the things I need for a new menu screen would be handy. But how often am I really making a menu screen? Is it worth spending a couple hours building that, or just bite the cost of every time I need to make a new menu, I just have to generate some new objects? I don't know. I'm not even necessarily fighting with anyone on this. I'm really fighting myself. This is an internal mental battle that I don't know if I'll ever truly win. I think I built a good UI system. I think. Regardless, this is functional. Now we should be able to make a really fast interact to make it so that we can actually unlock a goddess statue. Let's do that quickly. So this should be lightning quick. Interact. Let's copy open screen interact. We will call this we'll call this checkpoint interact. This is not going to need an open screen. This is not going to need an audio. It might need an audio. I think there will be more that I would like to have this do. Like maybe there's a text bubble that appears above the character's head and says, ah, another checkpoint, or maybe there's some sort of like glow that happens from the statue eventually. We'll have to figure out that later, but for now we'll just say in debug text checkpoint is unlocked, and then we're gonna have to set the audio, and then we need a new ability effect, which is going to be setting a flag, which I think I already have. Set a flag. We have a sequence step for it, but we do not have a ability effect for it yet. That's fine. I don't know where that exists right now. Utility, maybe? These are like for branching and looping inside of an ability. I'm going to put it here for the time being. Set flag ability effect. This is way too complicated and not what we're looking for. We made one recently, didn't we? Yeah, we made this pop really quick. We'll use that as the base. So we're really just doing a set flag, and then we need to do a set flag sequence step, which we already have. What does that take? That takes the flag ID, okay, which is a string, and the status. So the status we know will be active because we are turning on the checkpoint. And then we just need a string value, which will be the flag ID. And we just need to pass that in here. And that should be all we need. Ooh, interesting problem, actually. Right now, we don't have a way of giving an ability a parameter. So that means we will need a different one of these prefabs for every single checkpoint. Checkpoint 400A. Interact. And then we will I did this renaming inefficiently. So the flag ID we're going to need is going to be not that. That's the flag we want to set. I guess realistically, to make this better, we should probably actually do this as a parameter as well, so that this can be useful if we want to like set something to complete or not started to reset it back to base via an ability effect as well. Active. Okay, so this will only work for the one statue, but if we go into scenes, core, dungeon. Okay, and then we need a interact, so we will grab oh, do we not have one, I guess, technically? We need an interact tile, which will take an addressable to the ability, which will be this information here. This will be the CP interact. And this will need to go in the same spot as the statue, so that when you face it, you gain this interact. Ooh, another problem. We're going to need to turn this interact off. Did I do the hydrate? I'm going to do it again just in case. Okay. Let's give this a shot. So we're loading into this scene. Let's stop this and play some in-game music because I want to hear what happens with the interact. I'm hearing the little like sound effect that we put in there, and I think we should be seeing a console as well. Checkpoint unlocked. Yeah, and because we have not set anything up to make it so interacts can't be, we have no way of disabling an interact in our system right now, which honestly probably should be based off the flag. If this interact should use the same flag to tell whether or not it can be interacted with. So we should have like an ability effect or maybe even a targeting component that just says like check this flag, and if this flag is not started, it's targetable. Otherwise, it's not targetable. That's going to require a little more thinking, but I think that's the basic idea. So now that we've hit this button, ooh, actually, let's double check. Let's validate everything, because I think we're most of the way there. So yeah, if we set this checkpoint back to 0 by default, and then we can go to the core goddess realm. Let's see if we walk to that statue, do we gain that checkpoint? Let's do it properly. Here we go. Still would like to add some functionality to that if there's only one checkpoint, we just load in directly without showing that UI. Try and avoid the bats. I think this one's unavoidable, but we have more movement than them, so we should be able to outrun them. And then I believe this next one should be with the goddess statue. Awesome. And then if we hit this button, we heard the little sound effect. We're also going to check to make sure that we got the print checkpoint unlocked. Okay. Let's maximize the view, which we should have done from the beginning. And let's hit U to auto end the run and go back to the Goddess Realm. Perfect, perfect, perfect. Now if we walk back to the exit location, we should see 2 checkpoints. And we can checkpoint back to the goddess statue. And everything remains loaded from the previous run. So if we go back up a level, great. We're going to do one last thing to validate, or really not validate, but just kind of show, I guess, the value of all that work. So now if we want, we can come into here. If we open up this checkpoint data, maybe. We're not going to do it this way. We're going to do it inside of this one. Checkpoint flags. We're going to copy this. We're going to paste this. We're going to set room 3. We're going to leave it set. We're going to have this be room 3 as well. We are going to parse that data. Flag parse. We're going to check the JSON. Not that one. Checkpoint flags. We have the correct data in here. We are going to go to Dungeon Forest A. We're going to grab the beam and these 2 objects. We're going to hit copy on those. We're going to go to the dungeon, the forest, and we're going to go to room 3. We're going to paste this. We're going to move these down underneath the room section. We're going to grab all 3 of these objects and we are going to move them here, I guess. We're going to open up the start revealed. We're going to turn this object on. We're going to move it over to here, and then we're just going to fill in this section a little bit. Copy paste, copy paste. All of these tiles will start revealed. Okay, we will save that, which should export everything out to the data. Everything should be in the right spots. We can validate by coming into the revive location and then change this to spawn there. That should work. And we should load in. We do. Great. Now we can go back into, I realized I missed something in the previous scene. We can go back to Forest Room A. And now we can come back in here and we can grab the checkpoint interact. We also need that. And then we can go to Forest 3. We can drop that into here, go to the scene view, drag it over top of the goddess statue. We'll need to come into our prefabs, copy this, rename it to 003 interact. We will need to grab the addressable. We will drop this in here and change that to 003 as the interact. We will change the interactable that we are trying to reference to the one that we just made. And lastly, we will change this prefab so that it will use 003. And I believe with a little copy and pasting and a little bit of magic, we should now be able to interact and unlock this checkpoint, which we can test here. So we are in room 3, we can see that. Also in here to validate that we are in that spot. We can come into this spot here and we are not seeing it because we never hit save. Need to save in order for it to generate my interact in the right spot. Okay, we're gonna interact. Didn't hear the sound effect. Oh, because we have it muted. The little sound, little very subtle boop sound, but we are also seeing the checkpoint unlocked. We're gonna end the run. This needs to be sped up. This feels too long. Okay. Come back here. And we have checkpoint 3. Easy breezy. Let's go unlock checkpoint A. Just gonna end the run. And if we walk to the exit, we should see 3 different checkpoints. So we can load here. And we can load here. And I think we validated all 3 of those buttons work. We'll do the last one just to be sure, but I think that's checkpoints working. Might still want to change up some of the UI stuff so that we can display any flag as a button, but until I need to do that at least one more time, it's probably not worth all the effort. Yeah, that's checkpoints. Next things we'd like to see added to this is probably when we're moving through those checkpoints, I'd like to have some sort of map representation in behind that kind of shows where on the map you are. I don't want it to be like an actual like one-to-one, like here's a series of square boxes representing each room, but more so like just a abstract representation of like a forest and like a little dot next to one spot of the forest, and if you move this down, the dot moves over to the right a little bit. If you move this one, the dot moves down a little bit more to the south. And so like you can kind of just like see it, the dot moving around the abstract representation as you move through the checkpoints. That should be really easy to do with my front end system, because as we move up through these, we'll just need to have the data. Oh, not oh no, but definitely oh. We will need to store where that cursor should be inside of the checkpoint flag. So I guess a checkpoint flag does need more data than a regular set flag. Okay, well, I guess that makes sense. So I think we're on the right track. I think the changes I made near the end here to make it so there's actually like a checkpoint design data, checkpoint flags. I think this is all good stuff. About 3 hours to get this up and running. Still feels slow, but sometimes it just be that way. Well, lack of confidence about my code base aside, I think this was a productive stream. We are in a good spot. I'll post about this in the Discord as well, in case people don't watch all the way to the end of the VOD here, but I will call out for anyone watching live that we will probably not have another stream for a couple of weeks. I'm going to be focusing on finishing up work before I take some vacation time in December. Mid-December, though, we should be honestly doing streams almost every day as I work towards trying to get like a playable demo by the end of the year. I've got a bunch of vacation time I'm taking off in December, but as we work towards that, I'm just going to need to focus on real work for a little bit for the next few weeks. And then, yeah, so probably a 2-week gap here on videos, and then maybe around like December like 8th or something like that, I'll have to figure it out. I'll start doing streams either every day or every other day. December will be a big month for a lot of game dev streams. I think that's the main announcements. As always, I hope folks enjoyed, and I hope you all have a good day. And for now, this will be Tolhi signing out. Later, folks.